So, we're here at the Royal Northern College of Music with, in the company of Filip Michalak, who is going to be performing the Beethoven's Fifth Piano Concerto, The Emperor, at a concert in Shrewsbury with the Shrewsbury Choral Society on the 4th of May this year. And Filip's very kindly agreed to be interviewed, so we come up to do that. And so I was wondering if we could start, Filip Michalak. So how is it that you, from Denmark, end up here in Manchester? So can you tell us something about your journey that's taken you here?
Yes. Well, I had my first encounter with Graham Scott, who is my current teacher here at the RCM, at the Nordic Piano Competition in 2017, so 2 years ago. And after the competition we had the possibility to have a masterclass with some of the jury, and I was lucky to meet Graham, and we had a very good connection, and this led me to apply to the RCM here after the masterclass, and I was accepted in 2018 and pursued my postgraduate diploma here. And the year went so fast that I decided to stay here for 1 more year, or more, who knows. And yeah, that's how I ended up at the Royal Northern College of Music.
So it's very much a matter of personal connection rather than a particular preference for England as a place to
Yes,
do
it's
studies.
definitely about the teacher. I would never go to a place where I don't know who I'm going to study with. So the teacher aspect is very important to me, and I think it should be to everyone, because you are not going to accomplish things just by going to somewhere you like to be. You have to have the right guidance.
Okay, thank you. So let's wind back a few years to your earlier life. So when did you actually start playing the piano?
That's a funny question, because when I was 5 years old, I was begging my mother to play the piano. She's a piano teacher, by the way.
Okay.
But she said that I didn't really have the sense of rhythm, and maybe it's too early. I kept trying to persuade her to make me start playing the piano, but it took her 3 years to convince her. So when I was 8, I started to play the piano.
And did you have lessons from your mother?
No, I did not. That wouldn't work out, I guess. So I had a Russian teacher, and she spoke Russian to me, even though I didn't understand. But my teacher, she understood Polish. Both my parents are Polish, so I could answer in Polish. Of course, the first 2-3 years I had my mother translating everything, but after a while I somehow learned to understand the basic Russian, and that's how it started.
So I gather that Russian and Polish are actually quite similar.
Yes, they have lots of similarities, but of course it is a different language, and you would have to study it to actually be able to speak it.
Okay, so you started studying piano at the age of 8?
Yes.
So what year are we talking here?
We are talking 2002.
2002,
Yeah.
okay. And so what course did your musical development then take in Denmark?
Well, I was just having private lessons, I think, until I was 14 or 15. And then I attended a so-called pre-college in Denmark, and I had different teachers throughout this time. And I ended up at the Royal Danish Academy in Copenhagen when I was 19. Stayed there for 2 years. On my 3rd year I applied actually to New York. I was accepted on exchange, but I decided not to go just 2 or 3 weeks before I actually was planning to go. And that was because I met a teacher in Sweden I had some master class and I just connected so well with her that I canceled everything and went to Sweden for my third year bachelor. And I decided to stay there 2 more years after that to do my master's degree in Stockholm. Yeah, and after that I came here to RCM.
So would that be the kind of formative influence, that teacher in Sweden of that time of your life, would you say? Were there other teachers who really stood out for you as well?
She's definitely the one who probably taught me the most things about the piano playing, but yeah, I'm very happy that I made that decision to go to Sweden. And I've had many different teachers, and especially my first teacher, the Russian lady, was a big influence, and she's almost like a grandmother to me.
So you're still in touch with her?
Yes, I indeed.
Okay, so you keep up with all of your previous teachers, or at least some of them?
Most of them, yes.
Oh, that's good. And do they follow you? Do they come to any of your performances?
Yes, they do actually. Whenever I'm in Denmark, my first teacher would come to the concerts, and some of the teachers I had in pre-college have been to my concerts, and yeah, whenever someone can come, they will come.
And what age were you when you first started to perform?
I entered a competition when I was 9 years old in Denmark, so pretty soon after I've started, and I won the second prize. So yeah, from the very beginning I enjoyed being on stage and sharing the music. So
you like the limelight?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Of course it gets more difficult the older you get, much more competition, and there are so many great musicians and pianists that it takes a lot of time and effort to actually say something unique.
And so you think saying something unique, is that what you need? Is that what you need to bring to a performance to be kind of noticed, taken seriously? Definitely.
I mean, nowadays there are so many pianists, and just everyone can play technically well, but it's about if you have something special inside you, you can say, and that it really change someone's lives, like a performance that is very important to have a message to the audience.
And can you say anything more about that message, or is it just something you feel intuitively?
Both yes and no. You feel it intuitively. On stage you don't always plan what it is like, but sometimes the atmosphere of the room can trigger something inside you that makes you play a certain way. And that has happened to me many times, that some kind of silence from the audience, or yeah, just some intuitive feeling comes up, and you play a certain way.
Wow.
But I also do practice emotions when I prepare a concert, that okay, what is this feeling here, and it doesn't necessarily have to be every time I practice, but it's good to have an overview of what's happening in the piece and what you would like to say.
So when you say you practice the emotions, does that mean that you try to channel the emotion of the piece?
Yes, definitely.
So it comes from the piece.
Yes,
that you're playing. But does that then also channel back into the piece?
I think so. It does.
From you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's it just happens naturally, actually. It's not. But I also try to experiment with different emotions. That, okay, let's say this is a happy place, but I tell myself, okay, try to play it sad. Try to experiment with some other feelings and emotions that you just broaden your palette of emotions.
Fascinating. Yeah. So the idea, that interplay between the performer and the music and the audience, so that whole relationship is a sort of dynamic one that changes from venue to venue.
Yes, definitely. And that's what's so fascinating about music, that it's never the same. You can play a piece hundreds of times and it will be different every time. So I guess that's what we're living for.
And do you have a particular favourite venue or a sort of place that you feel most comfortable, most at home in?
Not really. I enjoy going to different places. I like to play in churches because it somehow gives you some spiritual feeling of the room, and also the sound you can produce, and there's often like a, how do you say, the sound doesn't disappear, so you have to take that and notice it and know how to play with it.
The sound doesn't disappear. So what?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't get. You mean it doesn't get absorbed?
No.
Yeah. So you talk about there's a spiritual dimension to the whole thing. Would you call yourself a religious person?
Yes, I'm born in a Catholic family in Poland, and we've always been very close to the church, and I think it also helps me with playing, that sometimes you have music like the Fifth Concerto of Beethoven that is something beyond maybe this earth, and I when I think about it, it's easier for me somehow, because I'm so used to thinking in this kind of terms, with a god or something supernatural.
Thinking in terms of something transcendent.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you get that? And would you say you have that experience when you play?
Yes, I would say so, actually. It happens whenever something is, for example, in the second movement. I almost can't put words to what's happening, because the music is so beautiful, and you just feel something special.
Well, we'll come back to the specific concerto in a minute, and I'm very much hoping you will play extracts of it that you think illustrate, I suppose, particularly well the specialness of the piece.
Yes.
But could we, for the layperson, could we talk a little bit about Beethoven more broadly? So it's 200 years since his death, and
250.
200, I think.
Yeah, 200. Sorry.
I think he died in 1820.
1820.
Yes. So that's right. So, and he's clearly one of the best loved and most frequently performed of all classical composers. Can you say anything about this about Beethoven's legacy, about what makes him special?
What makes Beethoven special is his life, I think, like how he changes throughout. You see it in the piano sonatas, how the style is changing, and if you look at the first sonata and compare with the last piano sonata, the style is completely different, and it's something beyond this earth, I would say, and it really characterizes Beethoven, how he was as a person.
So the early sonatas, for instance, I suppose he was a man very much learning his craft.
Yes.
So you think that ability to channel the divine, those are my words, but was something that developed as he went through his life?
Yeah, I mean, he struggled a lot, this person, and especially with his ear, like he was getting deaf, and completely deaf at his last years, and and he was not even able to perform the Fifth Piano Concerto, which was the first concerto he couldn't perform himself, or that he didn't do. At least it was his pupil Carl Czerny who premiered this work. All the other concertos he played himself. So he he was struggling a lot, and
Yeah.
you can see that in his music, and especially I'm particularly fond of his late string quartets. They really say something that you can't put words to.
And so, by the time the fifth concerto was written, that was was he already struggling massively with hearing loss by that point?
Yes, already then he was experiencing hearing problems, but he was not completely deaf yet. But the amazing thing is that you actually, you would only say that personally the music gets better and better. As we talked about all this divine thing, it gets more real somehow. And you see the evolution of his character in the music.
So that becomes more apparent, that sort of divine thread, or that sense of whatever is beyond or inexpressible comes through his music more and more clearly.
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah.
Especially, as I said, in his late sonatas and piano sonatas, and maybe not as much in the concerto, but this is still an earlier work than the late string quartets and
Yes.
sonatas. But already then you see a huge difference from his first piano concerto and his fifth piano concerto.
Okay, can you trace that difference? Well, how many years is there between the first and the last concertos?
I'm not 100% sure, but it's not that much. It's around 30 years.
Oh.
All the concertos are written in a small amount of time. Maybe it's 25. I'm not sure exactly, but it's not like the first sonata and the last piano sonata. There's many more years in between. And you clearly see the evolution of classicism towards the romanticism, and you see that already in the fourth concerto.
So for the layperson, what would be the hallmarks of classicism, and what would be the hallmarks of romanticism?
Well, the classicism has a clear structure, and you kind of know what will happen. And in the romantic era, you search much more for something different, some more emotions. And classical form is you have some certain ways to play it, and that was how people played Mozart and Haydn. So there's some kind of how do you say?
Like a regularity?
Yeah, regularity, and in the later works you see, okay, we are going somewhere with the music beyond that regularity. And
So
you see that definitely in the fifth piano concerto.
So could you say that in some ways a movement away from certainties of some sort towards something more open-ended?
Yeah, definitely that you can have different emotions and opinions about some certain passages, and
so they're open to interpretation.
Yeah, the interpretation
Yeah.
gets very different.
So let's locate the fifth. So the Emperor, roughly in the first decade of the 19th century?
Yeah, it was written in 1809.
Yeah.
Between 1809 and 1811. Yeah.
So at the height of the Napoleonic Wars. So
yes.
Does that have anything to do with the title that was given? Because it was later called the Emperor, not by Beethoven himself.
Yeah, it was not by Beethoven himself. It was one of Napoleon's officers who I think said something like, the Emperor of the concerto, and it has stayed like that since. But yeah, you clearly see some kind of connection to the wars, the struggle of people, the passion, the heroism. So many different characters throughout the concerto that could represent the emotions and feelings of the people at this time.
I'm thinking as well that that was a period of great change, great social change, rapid industrialization,
definitely,
large-scale European war, as we've mentioned.
Yes,
so a time of great, in a sense, a time of uncertainty, which is presumably reflected in the music of, like you're talking, as we were saying, that it's more open-ended and less kind of, you don't know where you are with it in the way that you might do with Mozart or Liszt. Or
yeah. You definitely see that.
Yeah.
The individuality becomes a thing that people's emotions and feelings are important, and we see that through music how it changes, and that's I think it's a wonderful thing.
So the emotions of the people the performers and the audiences, so are important.
Yes, I think it's related to everyone.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so if you're still good to continue, it would be lovely now if you could sort of take us through the structure of the concerto a bit and maybe play a few of your favourite extracts from it and maybe explain there, as far as one can, and put it in words, of course.
Yes. So the first movement starts off with a big cadenza, which is very unusual from the other piano concertos. I can just play maybe a bit from that. So. That's the beginning, very monumental, and here am I. He really is proving a point. As we go through the concerto, there are many places that are very Beethovenian, like the changes of mood. We can see that, for example, in one of the places in the exposition. I can try to play. Very
abrupt change of mood.
Abrupt changes, like from pianissimo to fortissimo.
And what does that change of mood evoke for you? What do you say what's going on there?
I would say it's some kind of uncertainty and struggle, which could show the how it was at this time. That especially when it's a war, you don't know what will happen, and
but with a certain element of serenity and optimism as well. In the latter stage of the piece.
Yes, definitely, and you see as we go on in the concerto how it maybe gets happier towards the end.
Happy is good.
What is unusual in the first movement is the cadenza at the end, which normally is a place where you would improvise, but Beethoven chose not to do that. He actually writes out the cadenza. And he even says in the score that do not play a cadenza but continue without interruption, which he never did in the other concertos. So that's definitely something innovative about this, which I will also talk about in the second movement, which is an almost improvisatory movement. I can show the first entry of the second movement, which comes from almost heaven. Something completely different from the first movement. And what is happening towards the end in the second movement is that, which is the innovative thing here, that he takes the theme from the third movement and plays it here in the cadenza in slow tempo, which is not something he has done before in the other piano concertos.
So he's anticipating the third movement.
Yes, exactly. He's. I can show that bit here. And then he leads to the third one. And the last movement is a rondo, which is a piece of music that the theme in the beginning comes back during the piece. So we hear the theme plenty of times in all the keys you can imagine. Actually, he even goes that far as E major, and we are in E flat major, so it's the furthest almost we can get. And the whole thing ends in a unison high-speed passage in the piano, and is ending with a triumphant orchestration, which is very happy and not so struggling as we just talked about, but something clearly happens throughout the concerto.
So there's a kind of resolution.
Yes, one would say
tension and conflict.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, I guess you don't want to play the end really for fear of spoilers.
The end?
Or the bit you've just been talking about, that sense of resolution?
Yeah. Let's see if I can play.
Great. So there we have it. So that is the fifth concerto in a nutshell.
Yes.
Yeah. So well, Philip, we've been talking for 30 minutes and you've been playing, and it's been a privilege to watch at close quarters and allow that marvel of the magic of Beethoven to unfold.
Thank you.
So,
it was a pleasure.
Thank you very, very much for agreeing to speak to us today, and we look forward to seeing you in Shrewsbury on the 4th of May with full orchestra, with a choir, with a wonderful church, with a wonderful atmosphere, which I think you'll very much enjoy.
Yes, I'm looking very much forward to
So
it.
once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.